back to channel, and today again we are going to review the movie, and today's movie is Training Day that came in 2001. And in this video we are doing full movie review, and we are talking about its facts, and we will analyze this movie. So let's start with overview. So Training Day is a gritty crime thriller directed by Antonio Hawke, starring Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. The film explores themes of morality, corruption, and blurred lines between good and evil within the Los Angeles Police Department. And if we talk about itself, for summary, the story follows rookie cop Jake Hoyt, Ethan Hawke, as he spends a challenging day being mentored by detectives Alonso Harris, Denzel Washington, highly experienced but morally ambiguous and narcotics officer. As the day progresses, Jake uncovers the corrupt and dangerous tactics Harris employs, leading to a tense moral dilemma about integrity and survival. If we talk about critical reception, Denzel Washington received widespread acclaim for his powerful performance, earning the Academy Awards for Best Actor, and the film was praised for its intense storytelling, gritty realism, and strong performance. And Ethan Hawke portrayals of the Navy rookie added depth to the film's moral complexity. The movie is often considered one of the best crime dramas of the early 2000s. And if we talk about key facts, release year in 2001, directed Antonio. Actor Antonio Fuqua, his breakthrough film, and main cast Denzel Washington as Alonso Harris, Ethan Hawke as Zico, Scott Flynn as Bill, Tom Berenger as Roger. And if we talk about awards, Denzel Washington won the Academy Award for Best Actor. The film was also nominated for Best Writing Original Screenplay. If we talk about box office, grossed over 104 million worldwide. We talk about filming location, Los Angeles, California, runtime approximately 122 minutes. And if we talk about themes, morality, corruption, loyalty, power, urban crime. If we talk about notable scenes, the intense interrogation and confrontation scene between Alonso and Jake, the climactic showdown that challenges Jake's moral, the depiction of police corruption, and the moral ambiguity faced by law enforcement officers. If we talk about Denzel Washington prepared extensively for his role, including studying real narcotics officers. The film was initially conceived as a different story, but the script was rewritten to focus more on the moral dilemma. Including Hawke was relatively unknown before directing training day but gained recognition afterwards. The film's gritty realism was inspired by true stories and real life police corruption cases. Now let's talk about more about it. If we talk about trending day in depth review and facts, let's firstly talk about its introduction. I know it will be a little darker. Uh, I think I should on the light, right? Wait a second. Isn't it okay? Like, okay, now I think it's okay, right? And let's start again. Do you continue and continue? You guys and talk about introduction. Trending Day is a compelling crime thriller that delves into the gritty and often corrupt world of law enforcement in Los Angeles. The film is notable for its intense narrative, complex characters, and moral ambiguity. It challenges viewers to consider questions about justice, morality, and corrupting influence of power within the criminal justice system. If we talk about broke down, the story unfolds over a single chaotic day in the life of rookie cop Jake Wyatt. Alonso is Western cop with a reputation for bending, outright breaking the rules to get results. The day begins with Alonso taking Jake through the streets of South Central Los Angeles, exposing him to the harsh realities of police work as the day progresses. Jake witnesses Alonso's engaging in illegal activities, including drug dealing, mediation, and violence. The narrative intensifies when Jake starts to question Alonso's methods and morality. Alonso's complex character involved in both charm and menace, making him one of the most memorable anti-heroes in the film history. The tension reaches a boiling point as Jake faces moral dilemmas that threaten his integrity and safety. The climax reveals the full extent of Alonso's corruption, forcing Jake to make a life-altering decision. The film ends with a dramatic confrontation that leaves viewers contemplating the thin line between good and evil. If we talk about themes exclude morality and corruption, the film explores how much power and greed can corrupt even those sworn to uphold justice. Now, if you talk about morality in law enforcement, it questions whether the ends justify the means and examines the moral compromises officers make. If we talk about urban crime and society, presents a gritty portrait of South Central LA, highlighting issues like drug trafficking, violence, and systemic corruption. If we talk about mentorship and influence, demonstrate how mentorship can lead to both positive and negative outcomes depending on the mentor's morals. Now, if we talk about critical analysis, Training Day is widely regarded as a powerful and provocative film. Denzel's Washington portrayal of Alonzo is lauded as one of his career's best performances, earning him numerous awards, including the Oscar for Best Actor. Ethan Hawke's depiction of Jake Hyde offers a compelling contrast. His innocence and moral clarity serve as a forwarding Alonso's moral ambiguity. The film's screenplay, written by David Ayer, is sharp, intense, and filled with memorable dialogue that captures the raw energy of street-level law enforcement. And if we talk about Antonio Fuqua's direction is gritty and stylish, employing a documentary-like visual style that immerses viewers into the dark, dangerous world of Alex Street. The film soundtrack and cinematography further enhance its intense tone. If we talk about awards and recognition, if we talk about Academy Awards, won Best Actor and Washington nominated Best Original Screenplay. David Ayer, to talk about other awards, Washington received numerous accolades, including a Golden Globe nomination. The film was praised for its screenplay, direction, and performance. If you talk about box office success, crossed over 104 million globally, confirming its commercial appeal. If we talk about behind the scene and production facts, the film was shot in Los Angeles, capturing authentic locations that had realism. Denzel Washington prepared for his role by studying real officers and their tactics. The script was initially shot around before David Ayer was brought on to write the screenplay, which was rewritten to emphasize moral dilemmas. Talk about Antonio Fuqua was relatively unknown before Training Day, but the film's success captured him into mainstream recognition. The intense, often controversial scene drew both praise and criticism for their brutal honesty and raw portrayal of police corruption. And now, if we talk about notable scene, the opening scene where Alonso introduced Jake to the streets with a mix of charm and manic. The scene where Alonso confronts a suspect with a brutal no-holds-barred interrogation, the intense car rides, where Alonso reveals his philosophy about power and morality. The climactic showdown involving guns, deception, and moral choices, which leaves Jake forever changed. And if we talk about cultural impact, Training Day has become a classic in the crime genre, inspiring countless film and TV shows exploring police corruption. We talk about additional fun fact, Denzel Washington intense performance was partly inspired by real police officer stories. He researched the film's creditor influenced by classic crime dramas and real life incidents that plays the King Kong. He is not and got nothing on it. Spoken by Denzel's character became a popular quote. The film's success helped launch Ethan Hawke's career into the mainstream. The character of Alonzo Harris was reportedly inspired by real-life corrupt police officers. We talk about conclusion. India remains a powerful, provocative, and thought-provoking film that challenges viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about morality, justice, and corruption. Its compelling performance, intense storytelling, and moral ambiguity make it a landmark in crime cinema. It continues to be relevant today as a stark reminder of the complexities within law enforcement and urban life. Let's talk about more about it. If we talk about its start with its again introduction, trading days, critique devoted itself as a landmark film in American cinema, directed by Anthony Hooper and written by David Ayer. The film explored the corrupt underbelly of law enforcement in Los Angeles through the lens of morality, power, and survival. With powerhouse uh, performance, especially by Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. The film challenges audience to reflect on the nature of justice and the moral compromises law enforcement officers face daily. If we talk about extensive plot summary, the film unfolds over a single tense day that become a moral odyssey for zookeeper Jake White, played by Ethan Hawke, eager to prove himself. Jake is eager to land a coveted position in the narcotics division. His mentor for the day is charismatic but dangerous Detective Alonso Harris, played by Denzel Washington, whose reputation as a street smart, no nonsense cop precedes him. The day begins with Alonso taking Jake on a journey through the violent, drug streets of South Central. Methods are unorthodox, often illegal, and driven by a philosophy and justifies the mean as they patrol Zeke witness Alonso engaging in various illegal activities, bribery, drug dealing, intimidation, and violence, blurring the lines between right and wrong. Throughout the day, Langatesh steers moral boundaries, persecuting to questions his own ethics and integrity. They encounter a series of morally complex situations, including drug deals, police brutality, and confrontations with dangerous criminal. Alonso's charm and Munich creates a compelling, conflicted characters, leaving Jacob between doing what is right and what is necessary for survival. As the story progresses, Jake begins to uncover Alonso's deep corruption. He is not merely a raw cop, but a manipulated criminal figure who operates above the law. The tension escalates during a climactic sequence involving deception, gunfire, and moral decision making. Jake is faced with a choice that will define his future: conform to the corrupt system or stand against it. The film culminates in a tense showdown where Jake must confront Alonso's true nature and decide whether to compromise his morals or fight for justice. Ending leaves viewers contemplating the real meaning of morality, justice, and integrity in a corrupt system. Now let's take a deep dive into themes morality and ethics. The film vividly illustrates how moral values can blur in a corrupt environment. Characters are forced to make difficult choices, often weighing personal survival against moral principles. If we talk about corruption and power, Alonso Harris's character embodies the corrupting influence on power. His charismatic leadership masks a manipulative and criminal nature, exposing how authority can be abused. If we talk about systemic justice and law enforcement, the film critiques systemic flaws in law enforcement, highlighting how institutional corruption can perpetuate violence and injustice. If we talk about urban decay and social issues, the setting of South Central LA is not just a backdrop but a character in itself, representing urban decay, systemic neglect, and social dis, uh, disenfranchisement. If we talk about mentorship and Influence. The film explores how mentorship can be double-edged sword as one whose influence leads Jake into moral peril, raising questions about guidance and responsibilities. Training Day was met with widespread critical acclaim upon release. Denzel Washington performance was universally praised, earning him an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and numerous other awards. His portrayal of Alonzo Zarez is considered one of the most compelling villainous roles in Hollywood history. Alan Hawke's performance was also lauded for its nuanced portrayal of innocence and moral conflict. Our direction and screenplay received praise for their raw realism, sharp dialogue, and intense pacing, with David Ayer's gritty writing capturing the authentic street language and dynamics. The film's unflinching portrayal of police corruption sparked decision about real world issues, making it both critically and culturally significant. If we talk about award and recognition, Academy Award for Best Actor Denzel Washington, his second Oscar nomination, Best Original Screenplay, Best Film Editing. Other accolades include Golden Globe Awards, Screen Actors Guild nomination, and numerous critics awards. And if we talk about commercial success, the film grossed over 104 million worldwide, making it a box office hit and cementing its status as a commercially successful indie-style film with mainstream appeal. If we talk about behind the scene insights, casting Denzel Washington was cast based on his ability to portray both charm and menace convincingly. Ethan Hawke was chosen for her earnestness and moral clarity. Filming shot on location in Los Angeles. The film's critic release was higher by authentic locations such as abandoned buildings, streets, and neighborhoods. Toward preparation, Washington immersed himself in research studying real police officers and their tactics to bring authenticity to another. Talk about script development. The screenplay was inspired by his own experiences and stories from urban street, emphasizing moral complexity over black and white morality. Now, if we talk about cultural reference and quotable movement, the line King Kong and got nothing on me, spoken by Washington's character, became iconic. The phrase "This is how we do it" could encapsulate the film portrayal of police brutality and systemic corruption has been referenced in many subsequent films and discussion about police reform. Now we talk about the scene and analysis. The opening scene introduces it to the streets with a commanding presence, setting the tone for the film's gritty release. The interrogation Rajo's brutal interrogation tactics reveals his moral flexibility and willingness to cross ethical boundaries. The Carmedian scene, high octane chase and shootout that exemplify the film's intense action and moral charm. And the final confrontation, Jake's moral choices culminates in a tense, morally ambiguous decision that leaves viewers questioning what is right and wrong. And if we talk about symbolism and visual style, the film utilized a critical appeal to evoke urban decay, and camera work creates a documentary feel, immersion viewer in the sounds. The recurring motive of the training theme underscore the idea that the day is a harsh lesson in poverty and survival. And now, if we talk about the symbolism and visual style, the film utilized arc, gritty color plate to evoke urban decay and health. Camera work creates a documentary feels immersing viewers in the chaos. The requiring motive of the training theme underscore the idea that the day is a harsh lesson in morality and survival. If we talk about impact on cinema and society, Training Day has had a lasting influence on crime dramas and police movies, inspiring a wave of films that explore police corruption and moral ambiguity. It also sparked debates about law enforcement practices, systemic corruption, and accountability issues still relevant today. And the character of Ron Harris, portrayed by Denzel Washington, remains an archetype of the charismatic yet morally corrupt police officer, inspiring decision about the thin line between hero and villain. If we talk about the extended legacy, the film is often used in academic decision about ethics, law enforcement, and urban studies. It has inspired TV series, documentaries, and decisions about police reforms. And the Washington portrait is considered one of the greatest villain performance, often cited in lists of top anti-heroes. And now, if we talk about final thoughts, Training Day is more than just a crime thriller. It's a stark, uncompromising examination of morality in a corrupt system. Its powerful performances, authentic storytelling, and provocative themes makes it a must-watch for fans of intense, thought-provoking cinema. It challenges viewers to reflect on their own morals and social structure that influence justice and law enforcement. Now let's talk about more, but it will take a little more time. So, okay, so let's talk about Training Day, the ultimate in-depth analysis and review. First thing is introduction. Training Day is a landmark film in American cinema that masterfully blends elements of crime, dilemma, drama, and moral philosophy. Directed by Antoine Fuqua and written by David Ayer, the film delves into the dark, corrupt corners of law enforcement in Los Angeles. It's a visual, provocative work that challenges notion of morality, justice, and authority, leaving viewers questioning the true nature of good and evil within the system. This film is celebrated not only for its intense storytelling but also for its complex character, powerful performances, and unflinching portrayal of urban decay and systemic corruption. It remains a cultural touchstone that continues to influence movies, television, and decisions about police and social issues. If we talk about its extended plot breakdown and scene by scene analysis, opening sequence, the film opens with a gritty montage of Los Angeles streets, a down setting the tone for the raw realism that follows. We meet Jack with Ethan Hawke, a young, earnest police officer eager to make a difference His ambition is clear, but so is his naivety. If we talk about Alan Harris, Denzel Washington makes a commanding entrance, arriving in flashy car, exuding confidence and charisma. His introduction is memorable. He welcomes Jack with a mix of tough love and intimidation, establishing his dominance and street smart persona. We talk about the first hours, Alonso takes Jake on a ride through the city, demonstrating his street credibility. Early scenes show Alonso engaging in minor illegal activities, bribery, intimidation, and drug dealing highlights his morally ambiguous methods. The dialogue tackles street slang, sharp wit, and a sense of danger. And the first moral dilemma is the petrol Alonso test. Jack's resolve by non-human questionable activities such as drug deal. Jack is visibly uncomfortable but tries to maintain composure, illustrating his initial struggle with the corrupt environment. The dinner and philosophy that Alonso takes Jakes to a restaurant where he shares his philosophy. The righteous man is the man who is willing to do what others want. This moment really reveals Alonso's worldview, one that justifies morally questionable action or perceived greater good or personal survival. Talk about the turning point uncovering the corruption. Jake's vision begins to realize the extent of Alonso's corruption when he stumbles upon evidence of illegal dealing and a cover-up involving drug money and police brutality. The moral landscape becomes increasingly complex as Jake grapples with his loyalty and morality. We talk about climactic confrontation. The climax features a tense confrontation involving guns, deception, and moral choices. Alonso's manipulation come to light, and Jake is faced with a life-altering decision to confirm or to stand for justice. The film tension peaks in a showdown that tests the limits of loyalty and morality resolution. The ending is ambiguous and provocative, leaving viewers pondering the true meaning of justice. Jack's final decision underscores themes of moral resilience and the corrupting influence of power, making the film's message resonate long after the credits roll. And if we talk about in-depth themes and philosophical underpinnings, moral ambiguity and ethical dilemmas, the core of Training Day lies in its exploration of moral gray areas. Characters are neither wholly good nor evil, but complex, flawed individuals navigating a corrupt system. The film challenges viewers to think about how circumstances and environment influence morality. We talk about corruption and power dynamics. Alonso Harris is a case study in how power's corruption is a charisma mask manipulative criminal mind. The film explores how authority can be abused and how systemic corruption perpetuates violence and injustice. If we talk about systemic failures and urban decay, the setting of South Central LA is depicted as a character in itself, an environment rife with violence, poverty, and neglect. The film portrays urban decay not just physicality but morality, reflecting social failures. We talk about mentorship, influence, and moral education. Alonso's mentorship of Jake exemplifies how influence can lead to either moral growth or moral decline. The film questions whether guidance from a moral corrupt figure can be redeemed or if it inevitably leads to moral decay. So okay, let's go for its character analysis and performances. Alonso Harris, Denzel Washington. Denzel's portrayal is iconic, equal parts charismatic, intimidating, and morally complex. His performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor. Alonso is deeply layered character who embodies the corrupt top archetypes but also reveals vulnerability and a desire for respect and control. Jack and Ethan's wife. Ethan Hawke's portrayal of Jack is steady in contrast, innocent, Irish and morally grounded. His character journey from naivety to moral awareness form is the emotional core of the film. Hawke captures the internal conflict and growing disagreement beautifully. If you talk about supporting characters, Roger Scotland, a veteran officer who provides wisdom and skepticism about Adolfo's methods. We talk about Lois, Jake's girlfriend, representing his moral compass and connection to more hopeful future. We talk about Blackhead, Harris, a street information who rides inside into the chaotic urban environment. We talk about technical aspects and style. Direction Antonia Hokuagiti visual style immerses viewers into the streets of LA. His use of handheld camera, natural lighting, and finite editing creates an urgent documentary-like atmosphere. If we talk about cinematography, the film employs a dark, muted color palette to evoke urban decay and moral ambiguity. Night scenes are often shadowy, emphasizing the danger lurking in every corner. The soundtrack features gritty hip-hop tracks that complement the urban setting and tone, adding authenticity and intensity. If we talk about screenplay, yes, sharp, street, smart dialogue captures the vernacular and ethos of urban fabric, making the character words feel authentic and impactful. If we talk about cultural and social impact, police corruption discourse. The film sparked widespread criticism about police practices, systemic corruption, and accountability, especially in urban communities. Influence of media, training day influence. Countless films and TV shows exploring police morality, including series like The Shield and Southland. We talk about iconic quotes, lines like King Kong and Nothing on Me here entered popular culture, symbolizing defiance and resilience. We talk about awards and critical recognition. Angel's Oscar win and the film is cement its legacy. Now let's talk about behind the scene and production trivia. Now let's talk about memorable scene and Their significance Alonso's introduction stabilizes his dominance and charismatic manner. The drug deal demonstrates the corrupt environment and Jack's discomfort. The interrogation scene highlights Alonso's brutal tactics and moral flexibility. The car ride's philosophy reveals Alonso's worldview and his justification for immoral actions. And if we talk about final confrontation, the moral climax where Jake's integrity is tested, the ending ambiguous and thought-provoking, forcing viewers to interpret Jake's final decision. And if we talk about legacy and influence, training day remains a significant film. Its exploration of police corruption, urban decay, and morality continues to fascinate. The characters of Alonso Harris has become an unchanged archetype of our complex anti-heroes, charismatic, dangerous, and deeply flawed. Influence extend beyond cinema to decision about systemic reforms, social justice, making it a vital part of American cultural discourse. If we talk about final reflection, Training Day is powerful, disturbing, and thought-provoking film that pushes the boundaries of traditional crime dramas. Its unflinching portrayal of urban violence, systemic corruption, and moral ambiguity challenges viewers to think critically about justice, authority, and morality. Its performance, especially Washington's, are legendary, and its themes are relevant in today's social conversations. Let's talk about more. Now, if we talk about Training Day 2001, the definitive in-depth analysis and review. Firstly, as all of you know, we start with introduction and historical context. Turning Day is a pretty provocative crime drama that explores the complexities of morality within law enforcement set against the backdrop of the urban landscape of Los Angeles. Released in 2001, the film arrived at a time when conversation about police brutality, you talk about systemic corruption and urban decay were increasingly prominent in American society. Directed by Antoine Fuqua in his breakout features, the film is notable for its raw realism, intense performance, and thought-provoking themes. It has since become a cultural touchstone influencing countless subsequent films, TV series, and public debates about justice and morality. If we talk about extended plot summary and scene breakdown, opening sequence and establishment of setting, the film opens with a panoramic shot of Los Angeles, a town capturing the sprawling cityscape, highlighting both its beauty and its decay. The gritty visual tone immediately immerses viewers into urban chaos. We are introduced to Jay Quiet, young, idealistic cop eager to prove himself. His ambition is palpable, but his naivety is subtly foreshadowed. His moral compass is intact, but the city's harsh reality is threatened to challenge it. If you talk about Enter Alon Harris and Denzel Washington, a charismatic commanding figure who arrives in classic noir with swagger and confidence. His initial scene establishes him as a street smart, influential figure with a reputation for being tough, no nonsense cop. He is warm yet mediating demeanor hints at layers of complexity beneath his persona. The first hour introduced to the characters and environment around the text on the ride through the street of South Central LA, demonstrating his knowledge of the neighborhood. Early scenes depict Alonzo engaging in minor illegal activities, bravery, drug dealing, and intimidation. These moments set tone for a film that blurs the lines between law enforcement and criminality. If we talk about Alonso's philosophy, is introduced through sharp dialogue. The righteous man is the man who is willing to do what others want. This establishes a central theme. Morality is flexible and survival often takes precedence over ethics. If we talk about moral testing and ethical dilemmas, and this scene depends on the expression of morality, illustrating how characters rationalize questionable action in pursuit of survival or success, uncovering corruption and moral dissent. The narratives intensify as Zack begins uncovering evidence of Alonso's deep corruption. The money and car of Zack finds evidence linking Alonso to the money and police cover up the confidence with the criminals. Alonso's brutal tactics come into full reveal, showcasing his willingness to use violence to color, maintain control. Now, if we talk about climatic confrontation and moral resolution, the final act is a tense action-packed sequence involving guns, deception, and moral choices. Jake faces a moral crossroad whether to follow his lead, risking corruption, or to stand against him. The confrontation culminates in a deadly shootout, exposing the true nature of the characters. Jake makes a critical decision that defines his moral stance and future. Toward the ambiguous ending leaves the audience pondering the true meaning of justice and morality, emphasizing the film's central themes. We talk about thematic analysis and philosophical underpinnings, moral grayness, and ethical complexity. Training Day challenges traditional notions of good versus evil. Characters are portrayed as morally complex, often driven by circumstances rather than inherent evil or virtue. The film asks, can one maintain integrity in a corrupt environment? If we talk about corruption and abuse of Our luxuries epitomize the corrupt cop archetype, charismatic, manipulative, and criminal. The film explores how power corrupts and how systemic issues allow such figures to thrive. Now, if we talk urban decay and social commentary, the setting of South Central LA is more than a backdrop, it's a character representing social neglect, violence, and systemic failure. The film critiques urban decay, poverty, and racial disparities, reflecting broader social issues. And if we talk about mentorship, influence, and moral education, Alonso's mentorship of Jake serves as a cautionary tale about influence, educations, whether guidance, morally. The film illustrates how slow and initiatives often arise. Ethics, and if we talk about character design and performance, Denzel Washington as Alonso Harris. Performance highlights award-winning portrayal combined charm, vulnerability. If we talk about character traits, charismatic leader, manipulative, morally complex, violent when necessary, preparation, studied, real police officer, adopting mannerism and speech to guide authenticity. If we talk about quad, King Kong and Go Nothing on Me, symbolizing defiance and self-empowerment. If we talk about Ethan Hawke as Jake Cole, performance highlights innocence, moral struggle, internal conflict, and if we talk about character arcs from name recruit to morally aware individual, representation, the moral center of the film embodying hope and integrity. If we talk about supporting cast and heroes, Scott Glenn as the experienced veteran who offers wisdom and skepticism about Alonso, Shana Latham as Lois, Jack's girlfriend representing his moral grounding, Mickey Harris as crackhead provides street level insight emphasizing realism. Now, if we talk about technical craftsmanship and aesthetic choice, first we talk about direction and cinematography. The new style, gritty, dark, reflecting urban decay. And if we talk about camera and shots, create immediacy, immersing viewers in the chaos. And if we talk about lighting, low-fi lighting enhance shadows, symbolizing moral darkness. And if we talk about sound and music, the soundtrack features gritty hip hop tracks that amplify the urban atmosphere, adding authenticity and emotional intensity. If we talk about the screenplay and dialogue, first thing that is sharp, street smart dialogue captures authentic vernacular, immersing viewers into the urban environment. If we talk about cultural impact and critical reception, awards Denzel Washington's Oscar for Best Actor, numerous nomination, critical acclaim, praised for performance, realism, and thematic depth. And if we talk about controversy, spark debates on police, practice, and systemic issues. If we talk about influence, inspired TV series like the Southland and numerous films exploring police morality. And if you talk about iconic words and scenes, King Kong and got nothing on me, Denzel's character defiant declaration, a final shootout, a visual culmination of moral conflict. The car ride monologue, Alonso's philosophical justification for his action. If you talk about behind the scene and production insights, inspired by real life stories from urban police officers. Talk about Antony Fuqua aimed for authenticity through location shooting and realistic dialogue. If we talk about Denzel Washington, he immersed himself in studying police tactics and mannerisms. The film was produced on location in Los Angeles, capturing its authentic atmosphere. If we talk about action, scene breakdown and soon, Alonso's introduction scene stabilizes his dominance, charisma and strict credibility. Talbot symbolizes the seductive power of charisma combined with moral corruption. The interrogation scene demonstrates Alonso's brutal method, and moral flexibility. It represent the thin line between justice and injustice. Now let's talk about the final confrontation symbolize the moral climax. Jack sighs to uphold integrity or confirm the ambiguous heading leaves viewers contemplating the nature of justice. Now we talk about long-term legacy and social reflection. Training day remains a provocative exploration of urban violence, police corruption, and moral ambiguity. Its influence endures in film and social discourse, prompting ongoing conversation about justice, systemic reform, and morality. If we talk about Denzel Washington's portrayals of Alonzo Harris is considered one of the greatest villain performances in film history, often cited in decision about anti-heroes and more complex characters. To our conclusion and final thoughts, Training Day is more than a crime thriller, it's a mirror held up to society, exposing uncomfortable truths about morality, power, and systemic flaws. Its compelling performance, authentic storytelling, it challenges audience to question their own morals and the social structure that influence justice and authority. Its legacy as a film that combines entertainment with social commentary ensures its relevance for generations to come. Let's talk about more. We talk about Training Day 2001, the ultimate exhaustive deep dive and critical analysis. That's a good story. Introduction. Let's start setting the stage. Training Day is cinematic tool, the force that combines raw urban realism with complex moral philosophy released in 2001. This film arrived during a period of iron awareness and debate surrounding police conduct, systemic corruption, racial tension, and Urban decay in America, particularly in Los Angeles, the impact is rooted in its unflinching portrayals of the gray areas of morality, the seductive power of charisma, and the corrupting influence of authority. It challenges viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about justice, morality, and survival in a society riddled with inequality and systemic flaws. Directed by Antonio Fuqua, whose vision was to craft an authentic visual experience. The film quickly garnered critical acclaim, awards, and cultural recognition, becoming a stable and decision about urban policing and moral ambiguity in cinema. Without a detailed scene by scene thematic breakdown, opening montage, and establishment of mood, the film opens with a sweeping aerial view of Los Angeles. It summarizes an urban landscape of beauty intertwined with decay. The visual identity, accompanied by a haunting soundtrack, immediately immersing viewers into the environment. This visual tone sets the mood for the entire film, full of raw realism, moral complexity, and a city that is both alive and morally decayed. If we talk about introduction of J. Poet, Ethan Hawke character profiles an idealistic young police officer eager to prove himself, called to earn respect, to do good and make a difference. Without personality, naive but determined, morally grounded. Jake's introduction is grounded in hope and ambition, traits that are soon challenged by the realities of the environment he is entering. If we talk about introduction of Alonzo Harris, Denzel Washington. Character profile: charismatic, street smart, influential, and morally ambiguous. Entrance arise in classic car, executing confidence, dialogue, and mannerism. Smooth authoritative with a commanding presence that immediately establishes him as a dominant figure. Now, if we talk about philosophy, the righteous man is a man who is willing to do what others want, a line that encapsulates his worldview. Alonso's introduction is designed to be magnetic, drawing the audience into his orbit while hinting at his darker side. And now, if we talk about the first, how systemizing the environment and characters. Tour of South Central Valley. Alonso demonstrated his knowledge of the neighborhood, blending friendliness with intimidation and illegal activity by a private truck dealing intimidation. These movements establish that Alonso operates in a murky moral space. Jack's discomfort, his internal conflict begins her as he witnesses behavior that clash with his moral code, and if we talk about themes introduce moral gray area, the film immediately signals that morality is fluid. Corruption and power, Alonso's influence over the neighborhood and the police system is evident if it survives the character. Adapt to their environment to survive often at the expense of morality. If we talk about the dinner and philosophical Alonso and Shakespeare meal. During Alonso discussion his worldview, the right is man is the man who is willing to do what others want. If we analyze this statement, release Alonso justification for his multi-questionable actions, viewing him as necessary for survival and destiny. And if we talk about significance, it introduces the central moral dilemma: can morality be sacrificed for success? Is there a justification for illegal or unethical behavior if the outcome benefits oneself or the community? The power of charisma and manipulation. Throughout the film, Alonso's charm is contrasted with his ruthless tactics. We talk about manipulation of Jake. He tests Jake's moral, trying to sway him into accepting his colleague. If we talk about use of intimidation and violence, scenes depicts Alonso employing psychological and physical violence to maintain control. If we talk about kissing and the significance, Alonso refused to in the car or lecture on power, respect, and morality, exposing Alonso's fatigue, atrophy, Jake's discomfort highlights his moral boundaries. To talk about intervention scenes, Alonso's brutal tactics demonstrates his willingness to cross ethical lines. We talk about uncovering corruption and systemic decay. The discovery of evidence, Jake finds evidence thinking along to drug money, corrupts and corruption, the cover up and deception, the film portrays how systemic corruption is embedded within law enforcement agencies. It our moral dilemmas intensify ethics, internal struggle deepens as he realizes the extent of the corruption. It over climactic confrontation and reservation. The final showdown when strong early strategy morality question Jake's decision whether to confirm or stand up against corruption. Without ambiguous ending, the film leaves the audience attempting the outcome and the true nature of justice. We talk about deep thematic analysis, moral ambiguity, and ethical relativism. Characters operates in a landscape where clear moral boundaries are blurred. The film questions whether morality is absolute or contextual. Alonso exemplifies worldview where survival justifies morally questionable acts. Toward corruption and abuse of power, Alonso's character is a microcosm of systemic corruption. The film takes the justice system, exposing how authority can be exploited. It about urban decay and social breakdown. The Los Angeles setting reflects social neglects. Drug urban decay and social breakdown. The Los Angeles setting reflects social neglect, poverty, crime, racial tension. The environment acts as a catalyst for characters' moral choice. Without mentorship and influence. Alonso's relationship with Jack is cautionary tale about influence. The film explores whether guidance from morally compromised figures can be salvaged or if it inevitably leads to moral decay. Without justice, morality, and survival, character are faced with choices of morality or survive at any cost. The film suggests that in a corrupt environment, morality is often compromised. So, it was the review of this movie. I hope you liked it. And if there was any mistake in this video, then I apologize for that. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.